I recently built a recording booth in my basement, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to talk about what it means to soundproof your basement, how you can go about doing that. Let's call it a basement soundproofing guide, for lack of a better word. Now, I am currently recording this from the booth, and I used multiple techniques to soundproof the booth. We are going to talk about 6 different methods you can use individually or combined to soundproof your basement. And we're going to rate them or kind of go through them from most DIY friendly to not so DIY friendly. And before we get into that, I'm going to talk about having your expectations for soundproofing. You know, you can buy watches that are waterproof or water resistant. When you are going into this, soundproof is something you want for like a theater room, or if you're a musician and you want to be jamming late at night and you don't want the rest of your family to hear it. Sound resistant maybe, or dampening, or however you want to approach it, is more along the lines of what you probably want. Now, I have 2 little kids, 2 little boys. I need to be able to hear whether they are destroying my basement or destroying each other. But I don't want to hear the theme song to SpongeBob SquarePants or what my 8-year-old is saying to his friends on NBA 2K. I don't need that. So I need a little bit of sound, but not all of it. I don't want anybody to be getting beaten the crap out of and I can't hear it while it's going on. Mind you, they're little kids. They'll scream loud enough. So you're going to have 3 challenges when it comes to soundproofing. 3 areas. You're going to spend most of your time trying to soundproof the ceiling. Now, it's the thing that gets remarked to me the most, and even in my own experience in my own house with regards to soundproofing your ceiling, is you're going to do a really good job of reducing the sound from down to up. It's going to be hard in a sense to reduce the up to down because footsteps are very difficult to get rid of, and you're going to spend a lot of time and effort to eliminate things that you may just not be able to. And, if you're the one who's not hearing them, who cares? So keep that in mind as you're going forward. Now, these 3 challenges, you're going to do your ceiling, and your ductwork is a big challenge. Your ductwork typically will go along the trunk of your basement, the structural beam, and it'll have like the big rectangular ductwork. That is basically a channel for sound. Sound travels through vibration. Your ductwork is metal. You will hear sound throughout it. So yes, you're going to build bulkheads and stuff, and those are kind of difficult to soundproof. There is a method, and we'll talk about it towards the end, that I think might work. But again, be reasonable in your expectations of what you're going to achieve going forward as a DIYer, or if you're going to bring these methods to a contractor you're thinking of hiring. The next is kind of the 2-parter. We'll call it a 2-in-1, right? Your stairwell and the door at the top of your stairs. Your stairwell, again, is like a tunnel for sound. So you want to treat the outside wall of your stairwell, if you can, if it's not an open banister or whatever, with soundproofing insulation. You want to make sure you're doing some soundproofing to that wall or that area to prevent the sound from traveling that corridor and up the stairs. Now, at the top of the stairs, you're going to have a door. More often than not, it is a hollow core door, which will vibrate. So it does some job of muffling the sound, but not enough. If you really want to go the extra mile, you can get a solid core door, which is, looking at Home Depot is about $300. And then, you can go a safe and sound door, which at the time, the last one I tried to source years ago was like $600. And that was probably 6 or 7 years ago. So given the times we're in, that's probably a lot more right now. But you don't really always need it. It all depends on how far you want to go. So those are the 3 areas that will be challenging to soundproof. Now, let's get into the methods we're going to talk about. Okay. Number 1, and the most DIY friendly and the most budget friendly, is soundproofing insulation. I have used 2 different kinds. I have used Rockwool, formerly Roxol, which I may forget to call it Rockwool and call it all Roxol throughout this because Really, it's the same thing with a different name. It's even the same color on the bag, so I get confused. I've used Rockwool and Quiet Zone insulation. So this sound booth that I've created has Quiet Zone insulation in the ceiling, and it has Rockwool in the walls. I will tell you anecdotally, which means my own opinion based on nothing, is that Rockwool is the better product. Even if you take two pieces of the Rockwool and the Quiet Zone, you put them next side by side, you're just going to feel like the Rockwool does more. It is more expensive. It's close to double the price of the Quiet Zone. Now, the Quiet Zone does do something. It is what's in my house in the ceiling. It's what I put in because it is cheaper. And I typically do not like to use the word cheap because it connotates something negative. But the truth is, it's not as good a product. It costs less. It's cheaper. Let's just call it what it is. It does do something, though. It does achieve something. So just understand that it doesn't do nothing. It does something. And if that's what you're going to put in, fine. Understand it's not the best product that you could be putting in. All depends on your budget. It's your money. I am not spending it for you. So that's the first one that's the most DIY friendly. The second method or technique you're going to use is called Resilient Channel. It's a little metal bar that you screw into your ceiling joist with drywall screws, and it kind of flaps down. So you're going to screw it through the flange, and it flaps down to absorb the vibration. It also helps flatten your ceiling because your ceiling joists, they're made of wood, so they have humps in them. So it also acts to kind of flatten your ceiling a little bit. Now, you are really going to have to be dead on with your measures because the part that you're going to screw the drywall into is only about 1 inch. And when you have your two butt joints meeting together, that means you only have about 1/2 inch on each side to get a screw in. If you don't do this for a living, that's going to be a little tough. So conceptually, yes, it's not that hard. You just screw it into the ceiling and then you screw it into the strip. When you're doing it, you're also using metal drywall screws. You're using the fine thread, which don't go in as easy as they go into wood studs or ceiling joists. Okay? It's going to kind of skip. It takes some time to get used to using them. The other thing that can happen is you screw right through the track on the Resilient Channel, and unknowingly you screw right into the joist. Now you've totally eliminated the purpose of putting it on. So it's not that DIY friendly. Number 3 is going to be using 5/8 drywall. So 5/8 drywall is the same as regular drywall, except thicker and more dense. Typically fire rated is what you're going to get, and it's heavier. And remember, you're putting this on the ceiling, so you're going to be pressing this up over your head and holding it up and trying to screw it in. If you have the Resilient Channel there, you're trying to get it into this little strip. It does something. It works. It's heavy. It's more expensive. With all these methods, the more you put into play, you are now stretching your budget and you're stretching your timeline. They are more work. You can't run the same distance. You can't run more distance in the same amount of time. You're adding distance, you got to add time. So understand as you add these things in, if you're going to use multiple methods, everything gets stretched. Everything gets pushed along. So we have 5/8. You could do double 1/2 inch drywall. So let's think about this. You could lay one layer of drywall and then another layer of drywall. Now it's more dense, it's thicker, it's bouncing the sound, you're good. Budget, again, now you're putting twice as much drywall in the ceiling. Let's say you're nutty. You want to do double 5/8. You might hate yourself. Maybe you're a masochist. Who knows? Double 5/8, I can tell you right now from having done purpose-built apartments and hiring drywall guys to do it, they have used many 4-letter words to describe me when I show them the plans. Like, by the way, it's 2 layers of 5/8. And, they don't like it. And these are guys who do it for a living. It's really tough to do. For basement apartments, for soundproofing and fire rating, depending on your municipality, they may require that. So keep that in your back pocket as you go along. It's more work. It's a lot of work. If you think laying one layer of 5/8 is heavy, try doing two. Okay, so now we've added that. All right, so now we've got a few in there, 5/8. The last one we're going to talk about is one called Sonopan. Now, I have never installed this. It has been around forever, but it's about $30 a sheet at Home Depot, $30 Canadian. We're in Canada. And it comes in 4x8 sheets. It's green. It's this fibrous membrane. There's a video I watched on it from the supplier, from the manufacturer. And then there's a video Remarkable Woodworks done. Mark, who I kind of know through the powers of the internet, has done. Now, if you watch the one from Sonopan, it does not look very DIY friendly in the sense that you need a lot of tools. It's this green fibrous thing. You got to cut it with a circular saw or a track saw or whatever you're going to cut it with. You need a vacuum, you need a mask, you need all these things. And then you're fastening it up with either staples, with a compressor and a gun, screws, nails, however you're going to get it up. It's floppy too, so it's not as easy to put up, right? However, some of these methods that we've talked about, and specifically the Sonopan method, I think is one that could really work around your ductwork if you have the ceiling height. Now, here in Ontario, minimum ceiling height between the bottom of your bulkhead, so the finished drywall, and the top of your finished floor is 6'5". So if you cannot get the 6'5" in there, you could have some problems with an inspector if you're getting a permit, which I highly recommend. Now, Mark's video makes it a little more easy to understand and not so daunting as a DIY task. He breaks it down a little simpler. He doesn't use a track saw. He uses a circular saw. He wears a mask. I think I would have a vacuum next to the circular saw as I'm cutting so that it would kind of suck it up as I'm going so it's not all in the air and it's not getting in my furnace. Mark, I believe, plastics off around his furnace when he does these things. So it's a great concept. I have never put it in. I know that it does something. It does work because Sonopan's been out there forever. And if you go to any of these home shows, they still have a radio in this manufactured box with a window. And if you open the window, the radio's blaring at like 80%. If you close the window, you can't hear anything because of the Sonopan and the 2 layers of drywall and the resilient channel and blah, blah, blah. So it's like a 3-inch thick ceiling, which, hopefully you don't hear anything anyways, but you don't have the ceiling height there. Now, if you have the ceiling height, great. You can use multiple methods, whatever you like. Soundproofing, again, is what are your goals? How are you going to achieve them? What's your budget? What's your timeline? What's your skill level? I think this is just a really basic guide. There's other methods out there. There's other stuff on the internet. I highly recommend you go checking as many as you can to educate yourself. I have not looked at a ton of them. I typically do not go out looking at other people's content unless I subscribe to them. I don't look at what other people are saying. And my opinion on that really is, if I'm saying something and then you're watching somebody else and they're saying the same thing, that means you're on the right track. If I'm saying something and somebody else is saying different, now you have more information at your disposal to say, do I do more research? Which method do I believe in? Let me do a little bit more homework along the way, and then you can ultimately make your decision. I am nothing but a consultant. I'm just sharing what I've learned and my knowledge and my insights over the years, so to help you along the way in your process. So that being said, I want to say thank you for spending some time with me, and good luck on your project.